Well, we have not done a Gaming Pasta video in a while. But yeah, I've been thinking about getting back into them after my 2 month disappearance. I'm still going to do other types of content too. I'm just still trying to think about what exactly I want to do. But a good way to start off is by continuing a series that I've been leaving in the dust for a while now. However, there are going to be some updates. I'm going to be doing one continuous gameplay video. With the transitions into the creepypasta, my thoughts, I'm not going to have it be that loud earthbound sound. I don't want that shit blaring in your ears. I just thought it was probably annoying. But yeah, this creepypasta is called In a Downpour. Got it from the Creepypasta wiki, and we're going to see if it's a good creepypasta. And yep, I'm going to continue back with Gaming Pasta whilst uploading other types of content. With that being said, sit back, relax, and enjoy another Gaming Pasta. The 1990s are regarded as the time that truly sparked innovation within the video game industry. A rivalry sparked, and a new player even joined a clash between the titanic companies. But one of the many startups that had tried and failed to become the next success story. Numerous smaller groups pushed mediocre releases in the pursuit of profit, though not every small company had this same goal. The year is now 2021, and I find myself part of a cozy release group. We're not entirely unlike piracy groups, but rather than targeting hot new games, we dig for prototypes and unreleased console games. Any of the big players in the gaming industry are generally avoided. We aren't trying to find a lawsuit after all. Nothing we happen to find and show to the public garners much attention due to the obscurity of each piece, though it remains fun enough that we continue. It's a rainy, dreary morning when I receive a message in our group chat. It came from our quote-unquote leader, Victor. Hey Tamara, I managed to score something amazing. Can I send it to you? I don't have any time to work on it, lol. Always happy to look at something new, I replied with. Of course, make sure it's secure, alright? Victor was across the pond in France, so anything would take some time to land here in the States. He didn't want to reveal the exact contents of the package he was sending, but I assumed it was just another old disc of a computer game. Weeks passed, until on a familiar morning a bulky cardboard box arrived at my doorstep, addressed to Tamara. Not wanting it to get soaked, I quickly brought it inside. Struggling with the weight, opening the package revealed a small variety of game cartridges, along with a console to run them. After bringing all the contents out, I started to examine each item closely. The console sported a peculiar design, using a rounded triangular shape over a typical rectangular one. The light green plastic shell held only one label, which had long since yellowed and its text faded into an illegible point. Fixed to one edge was a cheap, two-pronged power cable, along with video cables. Looking at the game cartridges, however, left little to discover. Each used a gray shell with cheap aged labels showing a simplified name and some numbers that were likely used as version codes. They were certainly prototypes. With such basic design, the controller was equally as visually uninteresting. Being a clone of a free-button Sega Genesis controller, it was at this point that I had enough of just looking and I decided to start playing. Hooking everything up, I went with the first game I grabbed, labeled Electric. Upon booting, it was clear that this was likely the first physical prototype produced for this game. Its title screen contained only a large, bold Electric at the top of the screen, with a much smaller press start below it. Following that instruction cued a loud lightning sound, and the game itself began. Unpolished 16-bit graphics faded in, showing a Mario-style platformer. It felt much like a rip-off, with basic changes like Mario becoming Marco, and fireballs being lightning bolts instead. I played up to the 4th level of the first world, taking place in the typical bad guy castle, rather than the final room being the chamber of some monster, and instead held only a chair. Figuring it was a bad guy's throne, I jumped over to it figuring it might be the clear condition for the level. Instead, making contact with it cut the screen to a bright yellow with the same lightning sound as when I started the game, playing at an even greater volume. That yellow screen persisted, so I simply turned the console off. Such a booming noise gave me a headache anyway, so I popped a painkiller and tried to take a nap. My phone ringing swiftly put an end to any attempt to sleep, however. Annoyed, I checked the caller. Victor? I answered and tried to speak, only to be interrupted with, I don't care what's happening, you need to go and play those other games. Now. Only silence remained after he finished his piece. I was confused as why he called me to say that, but I felt a genuine emotion in his words. Was it fear? Was it demanding? Was it even something he chose to say, or was it forced? The pain in my head effectively killed any analytical ability I had, but I was able to tell that he was serious, regardless of his situation. Despite my pain, I left my bed and returned to that console, inserting the next game, Morph. Morph had a title screen equally as basic as Electric used, but thankfully without any sounds after pressing start. Rather than a game, it was a character creator. I was given a few options for body parts to use, such as hair, face, clothes, and body type. Not many options were present, but you could make full-size 16-bit characters and shrink them down to a sprite that looks like it would fit in Electric. There was a feature to name your character with a limit of 5 letters, so I called it Anne. I could select the sex of the character, though it didn't affect appearance. The final option was crimes. Unusual, but I played along and said that Annie's crime was theft. Once I hit complete, there was a freeze, and then I was given a dialog box saying, save to console memory. Console memory? That was an impressive feature to see on what appeared to be an old console, as most used memory cards or kept their memory on the actual game cartridges. After saving Anne to the memory, I powered off the console and inserted the final game I had, Street. My headache was fading by this point, so I was prepared to play a real game. Once again, I used a nearly identical background to the previous games, and like Morph, it lacked any sound effects. Entering the game did greet me with a simple MIDI song, in a minor key. I was immediately given a prompt. Load characters from console memory? Excited that I could use Anne, I picked yes, and she was placed into the dark, rainy streets of a metropolitan area. The controls were exactly like that of Electric, though there was far less platforming to do and no enemies to fight or power-ups to collect. But unlike Electric, the level design was unique. Heavy rain poured from the sky, with puddles formed inside depressed parts of the road. Muted colors added to the overall mood, and my initial excitement turned into a more somber experience. Eventually, Anne reached the end of the gloomy area, and rather than advancing to the right into a new level, she stopped outside of what appeared to be a corner store. Player controls were disabled by this point, and Anne faced the door of the business, crashing it down and entering. Inside was the next level, where Anne would have a thought bubble appear above her head, and I had to collect that item she was thinking about. Each item collected would then prompt another to appear in its place. Despite appearing as a small shop from the outside, the interior was expansive, featuring some challenging platforming sections. Once I finally collected the last item Annie wanted, a message box appeared saying, "Good work, now we need to escape before someone shows up." Concern started to grow by now. After all, we just stole from the store. Theft, just like as I put as a crime. Making our way back of the entrance of the level, a police officer was waiting right where we had started. A compressed "halt" was spoken from that officer before Anne promptly shot him. Without any of my input, lacking any control once again, she fled the building, returning to the streets level and swiftly being surrounded by other officers, who brought her to the ground. Once they had sent her down, a dialog box with "Save to Console Memory" appeared, and the game ended itself. Shortly after was another call from Victor. Electric, classic code, all I can say. It ended as quickly as it began, but I still went ahead with his instructions. Inserting and booting Electric again, I pondered what he meant with classic code. But then tried what was the most obvious. Up, up, down, down, left, right, B, A, start. I said aloud to myself while entering the iconic cheat code. Hitting start sent me into a debug menu with the option force load from system, start at level, and exit. Selecting the force load prompted me with Anne's profile, this time with some new information. Name, Anne, sex, female, crimes, theft, breaking and entering, murder. Seems that our actions history had overwritten her profile and added to her list of crimes. Confirm loaded profile, yes/no. Well, I won't shy away from what we did, so I selected yes. Anne was brought back to the initial debug menu. This time I selected start at level, which had the option of 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, 1-4, 2-E. 2-E was a level I couldn't reach before, so I selected that and was promptly loaded in. Instead of a level, it was a single confined room. A steel prison door stands in the foreground, locked in tight. In the center of the room is a chair, facing the player. I didn't have any trouble figuring out what the point of this room was. Still, I had Anne jump around and try to find anything hidden within the room, but to no avail. Our only option was to enter that chair. I could have gone first, but I forced Anne into it. I had her run right over to it, and she was instantly strapped inside, and the chair activated. Blinding yellow flashes filled the screen along with the deafening sounds of the lightning entering her constrained body and burning it from the inside and out. The console shut itself off entirely after Anne's punishment was complete. We both committed those crimes, though. I brought Anne to that store. I led her to each item we stole and stood by as she spilled the blood of a man who tried to bring justice to us. I planted every bit of conductive material I owned into my desk chair and hauled it outside of the overpowering storm. Thunder clapped all around as I sat alone, drenched by the water that was now causing a flood. This failed to bother me, as retribution will soon reach me, just like it did with Anne. Alright, so I like this creepypasta. I thought it was a pretty solid creepypasta, and I like how it didn't go to any route where it's like, oh, and the blood was like, when she shot the cop was like hyper realistic. No, it didn't do any of that, so I didn't spot any like terrible cliche or anything, and even if there were a cliche, it wasn't entirely noticeable, or at least I didn't notice any cliches. I will be honest, I was a little confused by the ending. Why is like the author so regretful of what he did if it was in a video game? So it makes you think, what if this is another creepypasta that sort of screws with your mind? It kind of gets you theorizing on what's happening. I wouldn't say it was like super scary. It wasn't like anything particularly eerie to me, but I do think it was a pretty good story all around. And it's just something that you can see happen. Like, there's a bunch of companies that make a bunch of random shit that they don't release anywheres. And, well, like a unreleased video game console. They're all prototypes and whatever. You can see something like that happening. Other than that, I say it's a pretty good creepypasta. Wasn't exactly scary. I did find the ending a little confusing. Or maybe I'm just dumb, but yeah, that was another episode of Gaming Pastas. I'm gonna be doing more videos soon. I promise I won't disappear for 2 months again. But yeah, that's been another episode of Gaming Pastas. Expect more of them soon, and I am gonna go. Scram. Oh, you still there? Go away.